Every once in a while, we are lucky enough to experience a paradigm shift in the video game industry. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay. Welcome to Square Pegs, and today we are talking about just such a paradigm shift. One of the single greatest consoles ever. Even if you are not a Sony fanboy, even if you bleed Nintendo red or you are diehard green with the Xbox, there is no denying that the PlayStation 2 is probably the most influential console of the disc-based generations. Today I am going back to the PlayStation 2 and I am looking at 10 games that I am still playing today in 2025.
While a little clunky by modern gameplay standards, the Mark of Cree is something that I don't think enough people pay attention to because there's some really ambitious stuff going on here. First off, first game ever from San Diego Studio, the guys behind MLB The Show, so thank you for that because this game is wonderful. And one of the things I really dig about it is that the game makes really smart use of both analog sticks. Normally, in a third-person action game like this, you're going to be using that right stick to move your camera around, but in this case, you use it to lock onto enemies. So when you get into combat, you sweep that right stick, and you're going to have a button icon appear over different enemies, and the button that appears is the one that's going to attack them. It's really, really cool. There's some amazing stuff here. I dig that it's all Polynesian culture based too, which I think is really cool. That is not a setting that happens frequently enough in video games. This game's just amazing. Like, it's an older title, and it's, like I said, it's a little bit clunky by modern standards, but I think if you haven't played the Mark of Cree, you should do yourself a favor and try it out, because there's some really unique gameplay options going on here, and the storyline is really cool too. Most people prefer Ultimate Muscle on the GameCube, and you can't be faulted for that, but I really do enjoy Galactic Wrestling featuring Ultimate Muscle on the PlayStation 2. I think the combat is actually better. I think it works better here than it did on the GameCube. I think it's a little bit closer to things like No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000 as opposed to being a little bit more off the wall on the GameCube version, all while still completely embracing the fact that Kinnikuman is dumb and silly and over the top and weird and crazy. So you get a nice blend of realistic and just insane super moves, but it blends really well. It's a really, really fun title. There are some things missing, I think if the game had sold better in sequels, we would have seen more kind of improvements upon this, but unfortunately the animated series ended, the game didn't sell that well, so we got a one and done, but there's a really memorable roster here. It's a really fun game. The soundtrack is great. Like, having the announcers from the cartoon telling you what's going on in the matches is really fun. And there's some neat gacha stuff as well, where you can actually like unlock little figures and things like that. It's a fun title. I've been talking about Katamari a lot on the channel recently. I had it featured in an eShop Hidden Gems video a couple weeks ago, and I'm talking about it here on the PS2 because the original Katamari Damacy from Bandai Namco is one of, in my opinion, the best games ever made. It is such a ridiculously simple concept. You have a ball, you roll it. You are able to pick up things that are smaller than the ball, and as they are picked up, they will expand the size of the ball so you're able to pick up more and more and more stuff. And that's, like, just core competency looking at it like that. That's a very simple idea, and not necessarily the most exciting or entertaining thing, but when you toss in the overall ridiculousness of the storyline, the memorable characters, the weird look of the world, like it's definitely kind of an abstract view of our planet, and the fact that you are just tossing junk into space to make new stars because your idiot father destroyed the cosmos, you realize you got something really special here. And then you toss in the incredible music as well, and the game is just magical. In my original PS2 games I keep going back to, I feature the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology because I think that might be my favorite fighting game on the console, but one that cannot be ignored by any stretch of the imagination is the brilliant Soul Calibur 3. Now, I've been a fan of the Soul Calibur series ever since I originally played it on the Dreamcast, and being able to play it further and just keep continuing that series to see it grow, to see the mechanics improve, to see the models and just the overall combat mechanics improve is really awesome. And Soul Calibur 3 is a wonderful, wonderful game. Now, it doesn't break the mold or change the kind of overall concept from previous iterations of the Soul Calibur series. It's a pretty tried and true formula, and that's okay, because it just works. It's fun. Sometimes you don't really need to reinvent the wheel with a fighting game. You just need it to be solid, to have memorable characters, to have good environments, and to have solid combat. And that's what you get here. I gotta be getting close to featuring this entire series on the channel at this point. This is Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. This is an updated, modernized version of the original Outrun 2, and it's awesome. If you have ever played Outrun, you've played this game. Like, you know exactly what it is. There's a branching map that you have to go through. You have to hit your checkpoints to be able to make sure that you're able to keep driving, and you want to get as far as you can. But what this game also does is it includes some different challenges and single-player options as well to give it a little bit more variety, to make it a little bit more interesting, and it works. It's just a fun game. Like, it's not gonna really, knock your socks off with something being really crazy or innovative here. It just makes Outlook modern, and it works incredibly well. If you enjoy the Outrun games, if you liked the arcade original, if you loved it back on the Master System, Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast needs to be on your list. I'm not a huge fan of open-world crime-based games, so you're never really going to see a Grand Theft Auto on any list of things that I play, except possibly Vice City or San Andreas, just because I got a problem about playing the bad guy. It's just not a thing I really enjoy, which makes it curious that The Godfather is on this list, because this game is just a slightly different version of Grand Theft Auto, but it's a game that takes the property of The Godfather, the 1972 film, and it makes something really incredible here by expanding upon that storyline. There's so many characters returning from the original storyline. You don't get some of the characters just because the actors didn't license their likeness or their voice, but you get a lot of characters returning to be in this game, and you get to play as a character that was never in the movies or never in the book, but you are kind of running parallel to the story of The Godfather as you play. It's a magnificent game. It's an incredibly deep title with a lot of gameplay options here, and it's something where playing the bad guy is kind of cool because it's a really compelling storyline, and you're in such a historical setting taking place in the 30s and 40s where you're learning about the Corleone family, and it's just really cool, man. I really dig this game. It's so well made. Check this one out if you haven't. If this is one of those games you've avoided just because of the license, you should really play it because it's magnificent. Longtime viewers of the channel will know I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the Contra series just because I kind of found the older games a little bit frustrating. Not saying that they're bad by any stretch of the imagination. I'd give them a solid B. But for me, one of the ones I really enjoy, and that might seem a little bit curious as to why this is on the list, is Contra Shattered Soldier. This released in 2002, and I think it did some stuff really well. I really liked not having to worry about tracking down power-ups, and I know that takes apart some of the core gameplay mechanics of the original Contra games, but I like just being able to tab between the different ones that are available to me and use them as I see fit. I liked the storyline. I liked being able to just jump in and be able to play and not feel like my soul was being ripped out of my body based on the difficulty of the title. Now, this is still hard, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't make me want to hit anybody hard like Contra does. It's a really fun title, though. It's a really good game. If you haven't played this one, it's definitely worth checking out. It's something that I think is a great kind of build from those original Contra games to bring it into a future generation, or, well, a past generation now in this case, since it's released in 2002, but it's definitely fun. I don't typically get into top-down shooters. Shmups are a very acquired taste for me, and it takes something really special for me to get into it. I like a lot of the ones on the Dreamcast because they're silly and they're weird. And I don't know why I am so drawn to Raiden 3 on the PS2 because it is not silly, it is not weird. It is just a classic sci-fi horizontal shooter, and it just works, man. This game just kicks ass. It's so much fun. Now, it's hard as hell. It's crazy, crazy difficult. It is 1000% a bullet hell, but it's just so smooth. It's like silky smooth in presentation, and it makes me wish that I had the ability to flip my monitor, or flip my TV when I'm playing it, to actually have it display and play vertically. Vertical shooter, not a horizontal shooter. I get those mixed up sometimes. But it's such a fun title. It's a really, really solid game, and there's just nothing on this I dislike. It's, again, hard as hell, but if you dig shmups, you should check out Raiden 3. As someone who wasn't really a fan of Final Fantasy X, it took me years to play Final Fantasy X-2, because when I looked at it, I was like, well, it's characters I don't really care about in a world I didn't really enjoy. Why would I want to play this? And I'm so glad I finally did, because the game is significantly better than 10, in my opinion. I think it's lighter, it's breezier, it's more fun. Like, it's a more just positive game overall as far as like a storyline goes and character presentation goes. It's really cool that you get an all-female cast. The characters are memorable and fun. The combat is great. It's classic Final Fantasy combat, so you know what you're getting there with the active turn battle system. And I really enjoy just the setting. I really like that it's a truly open world. You can go any direction you want at any time. It's not as linear as Final Fantasy X was. I just think they fixed a lot of mistakes from the original. This game's spectacular. One of the things that really goes unheralded with the PlayStation 2 generation is how many amazing franchises launched during that generation. One of those is the Burnout series, of which I've loved really every game, but I don't think there's really any discussion necessary to equate which one is the best, because it is Burnout 3 Takedown. Everyone knows that. It did everything right. Like, the problems with things like Burnout Paradise and games of that ilk that came later were they tried to shoehorn an open world in when all anybody wanted was just to run events and wreck stuff. And that's what you got in perfection with Burnout 3 Takedown. It's, simply put, one of the most enjoyable games. It's incredibly approachable. It's incredibly easy to pick up and play. Anyone who has ever played an arcade racing game before understands the appeal of just trying to not only win, but wreck everyone in the field as well. And Burnout delivers that joy in spades. Burnout 3 is one of my favorite PlayStation 2 games. It always has been ever since I first played it, and it's truly one of the best games on the console.
There you have it, 10 games I'm still playing on the single greatest disc-based console of all time, the Sony PlayStation 2. Now, that might sound like hyperbole, but I'm not going to lie to you. I honestly believe it. I do think it is the single greatest disc-based console of all time. The library is massive. It has everything from incredible RPGs, fantastic sports games, brilliant shooters, awesome action, and just an amazing library from top to bottom. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anything you think I overlooked, if there's anything you're shocked to see on this list, and if you're curious if there's anything specific missing, check out the link on screen right now where I did this last year, looking at 10 PS2 games I was playing in 2024. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up. Really gives a nice boost to the algorithm. And if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you stick around. I do a couple of videos a week. Till next time, folks, I've been Jay. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.